We are officially 2 days out, ladies and gentlemen, until Halo Infinite's finally out. Can you believe it? It's been a long time coming, but we are officially just about 48 hours away. Crazy to think about. And with that said, I thought, I've been speculating myself along with everyone else about what this game is going to be about and what we wanted, our hopes and dreams and what we want in the game. We've been doing that for years at this point, since Halo 5. So I thought, well, since we're on the eve of the game coming out, I should probably make one final video that has my final predictions, but also my wish list of what I'd like to see in the game. I have about 10 or 11 things here on this list. The first one I got is something I've thought about since I finished Halo 4 all those years ago, and it's the return of the Didact. As I'm sure we all know if you've played Halo 4, the Didact wasn't exactly used well. I mean, personally, I liked what we had of him, but I would have liked to see more. But realistically, we got his meeting with the Chief, and then he flees, and then the rest of the game is us chasing him, and then we meet him again. Our last meeting with him at the end of Halo 4 was lackluster, to say the least. They built him up like we were going to have some big boss fight with him, but of course, just like all the other bosses in the previous Halo games, it wasn't exactly a boss fight. It was just a final QTE. You just shove a pulse grenade inside of him, and he goes, and falls over and falls into space. And at the time, I was thinking to myself, man, that was anticlimactic. So I think we can kind of rectify that mistake and kind of give the Didact his due if we bring him back in Infinite. And as it turns out, apparently he was supposed to come back in Halo 5. There was concept art for him, but he didn't make it in. I heard that it was something about there was conflicts with the voice actor that plays him, so they instead created the character of Warden Eternal to replace him. But since he actually didn't die at the end of Halo 4, he was killed off in a comic, and, well, quote-unquote killed off because he was composed. And so he could actually come back still, even though he's been composed, because, I mean, look at all the knights. They're all composed. They were people at one point, but they're still beings now. So he can come back after being composed, but in a completely synthetic body, kind of like the Warden Eternal. And I would think it would look better than how he did in 4, because personally I'm still a little iffy on the design of the almost cat-like face of the Forerunners. So I'd prefer him to be all synthetic anyway. So that's my first one. My next, that's more of a wish thing on my wish list than a prediction. I don't think it'll happen, but it would be cool. The next one is Mendicant Bias. For people that know the deep lore of Halo and like Mendicant Bias and Zeta Halo and stuff, I think we all are kind of hoping we see him in some shape or form, maybe in a flashback. Maybe he's like reborn or something, because I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not totally up on the lore, but he's like, didn't he die or get destroyed at some point? I'm sorry, I don't actually know all the details about him, but I think he would have to be reborn in some way, because as far as I know, he's not around right now, and I think the speculation has been since Halo 3, when Cortana was corrupted, I think we all assumed that it was him, because he sort of alludes to it in the Halo 3 terminals. And even back during one of the early campaign trailers, people thought they saw him because they saw like 3 orange or red lights, like in a triangle shape, and people assumed, oh, that must be Mendicant Bias, but who knows if that's what that is. It'd be cool to see him get some more lore about the precursors. I mean, get any lore about the precursors, because they're not in the games. I think we got a little bit in 4, but get some of that. Maybe we could see the Palace of Pain that was talked about in the books. That'd be cool. That's more of a wish list item as well. I think it's a 50-50 chance that he actually shows up, but I guess we'll know in a few days. My next one, also more of a wish list item, but I think it is pretty plausible, is to see Blue Team again, or at the very least hear about their status. And maybe even Fireteam Osiris as well. Now that we've had a game with Chief fighting alongside Blue Team, we have to be given a reason as to why they're not fighting together again here. Because back during the old books, where the Blue Team were first shown and talked about and went on all those missions with Chief, they kind of sort of give an explanation as to why they aren't with him in the original trilogy of games. But we've now seen them together, so we have to have a narrative reason now to explain why they aren't with him. And I'm sure they'll give us that. Of course, I haven't actually caught up on all the novels that came out after Halo 5, so I'm sure some of those questions have been answered, but it's not ones that I would know. But I think it's answers that we should be given, and to all the people that only play the games, they should be told that too, maybe through audio logs that you collect or something, or cutscenes, because not everyone reads the expanded lore for Halo. Some people just play the games. In fact, the majority of people just play the games, which is why there's going to be a lot of people confused probably at the start of this game unless they give us a primer that tells us what happened between 5 and Infinite. I think, like most people, I wasn't the biggest fan of Fireteam Osiris. I don't think any of them really have that much of a personality, except for Buck. I'd like to see Buck return, but I remember joking back when like Halo Infinite was first revealed, saying that it would be a good way to start the plot, I think. It would be a good inciting incident if this game began with Osiris being taken out by maybe Cortana's forces or something, I don't know, and that propels the rest of the plot. And of course, Mega Bloks leaked that thing last year. There was a Brute figurine that came out that had like what looked like Locke's helmet on his shoulder, so people speculated for a while, is Locke dead? I don't know, I guess we'll find that out too. The next one is the Spirit of Fire crew. I want to find out what happened to them, and of course Spartan Red Team. And also what's happening on the Ark now after the events of Halo Wars 2. Maybe we'll hear about it. There's got to be like audio logs and stuff talking about what's going on there. I don't think they won't reference it at all. That'd be crazy. But I would love it if like towards the end of the game or something, somehow the Spirit of Fire crew shows up in orbit or something, and you hear Captain Cutter, and you get like some interaction between Jerome and Chief or something. I don't know. Be really neat. Another thing I'd like to see is Halo 5 style hidden named weapons. I really liked that feature in 5, having all these weapons that had names for them that were all pretty well hidden. And besides the named variants of the weapons, it would be cool if we saw a couple of weapons that they kept close to the chest that we've not seen at all in any marketing. I think that's more unlikely. Sadly, I think we have seen all the guns that are in the game now, but it would be cool to stumble across one we haven't. Maybe do what they did in Halo 5, which is like a classic BR, Halo 2 BR, or like a Halo 2 beam rifle, stuff like that you can find. I don't know. This next one is a very, like an extreme long shot, especially for launch, and that's some areas and biomes that we have not been shown yet in the trailers. This is something that's probably more likely coming in the expansions, but we've been told that, because like if you go back and watch that first teaser, that was an game engine demonstration. For that first Halo Infinite teaser, it wasn't really representative of the game. But if you did watch that back, you get, for the most part, forest. You get a little bit of desert, and I don't think you get any snow in that trailer. And I think some swamp. But realistically, everything shown in that trailer can be in Infinite. I know there's complaints that there's seemingly no snow areas, or there seems to be only one biome, and we've heard from the developers that it's the Pacific Northwest biome, which has a lot of sub-biomes in real life. There's deserty areas in the Pacific Northwest. I'm not sure about snowy areas, but that might come later. We'll find out, but I'm just afraid that the game might start feeling samey after a while if the whole thing is in like a foresty area. But I have the feeling that there are missions that are not taking place on the Halo ring. I bet there's at least 2 or 3 missions that are outside of that big map. Just don't really know the structure of the game. I've just been trying to avoid anything about the game at this point because we're so close, so I don't really know anything about the structure. My next item is some light puzzle solving using the grappling hook. We all love the grappling hook. We use it in multiplayer. It's so much fun to use, and it's going to be amazing to see what people come up with in custom games when that comes, and in Forge. But using it for solving puzzles and like using it on items in the environment, it's going to be interesting if they go that direction. It would be similar to the puzzles in the Batman Arkham games, where they use Batman's grapnel gun to like pull levers and pull off grates from places. It'd be a cool thing to be able to use to manipulate your environment. Halo's not really been one for puzzles at all, so that's probably unlikely, but it would be a cool addition. Next up on the list is I would like to see the Prometheans in it at least a little bit. I know that's going to be controversial because there's some people that absolutely abhor the Prometheans and never want to see them again. I personally don't hate them, and I would like to fight them at least for a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 missions, I don't know. Maybe at the very end, like, we'll get to my last one that I will get to, but I would like it if all the factions we've ever seen in these games are all fighting you towards the end of the game, Prometheans included. Next on the list is more Easter eggs. Just pack this sucker full of Easter eggs, man. Bungie, obviously, we know, had a history of doing a ton of Easter eggs. 343 less so. Halo 4 didn't really have that many. 5 kind of cranked it up and added quite a bit more than 4. But I want to see them just blow the doors off this thing. And hopefully, I think they might have had more time to make Easter eggs because they had an extra year of development. So if there was a couple of guys on the crew, or gals on the crew, that had some extra time, maybe they just threw in some Easter eggs somewhere. Stuff like that usually comes towards the end of development. Here's a big one from my next one. I would really, 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 really like to see some Halo Wars 2 vehicles. I know we've not really seen any in any of the marketing except for like the Banished Chopper, of course, and the Banished Wraith, all the new variants of the classic vehicles. But maybe, hopefully, they kept some secret. I don't know. I think this is lower on the chance of possibility. Maybe 20% likelihood that this happens. And if they aren't usable or you don't see them being used, maybe just at least in cutscenes would be cool to see to link it more to Halo Wars 2. Like, can you imagine fighting some of those vehicles we've always wanted to use, like Locusts and Marauders, Reavers, Blisterbacks? I remember after playing Halo Wars 2, I was just imagining in my head what an FPS of that game could look like with all those new vehicles. Or imagine you're playing as Chief and you get to actually drive and operate some of these vehicles that we've talked about using for over a decade now, since Halo Wars 1 in 2009, like the Grizzlies, the Sparrowhawk. I would love to use the Sparrowhawk. The Wolverines, the Jackrabbits, those little motorcycle type things. Like I said, with most of these things, this is probably something that will come eventually, but I don't see it for the most part at launch. But I would like to see in some game at some point us be able to use some of the Halo Wars 2 vehicles. And my last prediction, and this is more of a prediction than a wish list item, but it's kind of both, and that is, of course, what everyone says, which is the Flood. Now, this one's more tricky because with the Flood, of course, every time they've been in a game, it's been rated M. With the exception of Halo Wars 2, they weren't in the base game of Halo Wars 2, but they came into the game with the DLC Awakening the Nightmare, and that was still rated T. But unfortunately, the drawback you have is you can't be as grotesque with the Flood, which really sucks because I think all of us would like to see just how gross and disturbing you could get with the Flood with today's graphics. I mean, to this day, the Flood still look great, and especially in Halo 3. But I don't think you could do the whole them reanimating the corpses thing in a rated T game. But who knows? T and M don't really mean as much as they did 10 years ago. A lot of stuff that used to be in an M-rated game could easily be put into a T-rated game these days. And there's very little blood to begin with in this game. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I want to see the Flood back, but I don't know if I want to see a nerfed, less disturbing Flood if we are going to get them. I do think there'll be plenty of references to them since we are on Zeta Halo and we'll probably see the Palace of Pain, so I do think we're going to see references. But as far as having the Flood, unless they've somehow kept it a secret, like they've really kept it under wraps like they did with Halo 1, nobody saw that coming in Halo 1. So unless they pulled the Halo 1 again and haven't showed any of that, and if they did manage to hide it this long, bravo. But as far as I'm concerned, it's super unlikely, but I would love it. And like I mentioned earlier, it'd be so great to have every faction you've ever fought in Halo all fighting you at the same time. We've never had that. You could have the Banished / Covenant, whatever you want to call them, plus the Prometheans, plus the Flood, all going at you at once. And again, it's something that is probably more likely to show up in DLC. And of course, maybe if we get Flood mode back from Halo 4, then we'll see him there. But that's really about it. I got like about 10 items that for my wish list / prediction. It's, to be honest, it's mostly wish list, less so predictions, but there are a few in there that are predictions. But yeah, that's really all I'm going to say about the game and I guess all will be revealed in a couple days when the game's out and after this excruciating wait. And we'll finally find out if any of these things make it in, half of them, maybe none of them. But I couldn't be more amped for the game. So what did you guys think about all my picks for predictions and my wish list? Are mine some of the same ones you have? Let me know in the comments if you have ones that are the same or different or ones that I should have that I didn't even think about. I'm on the road to 100 subscribers, so if you don't mind, I'd appreciate it if you click that red button. And I'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching.